Reports surfaced early on Tuesday were confirmed later on by multiple outlets that the Cubs have agreed to a deal with veteran infielder Justin Turner. Today, taking a few minutes talking about, and this isn't a knock on Turner whatsoever, but we're going to talk about how the Cubs continue to be the bridesmaid and never the bride when it comes to free agency. I am Mitch Widmeyer. This is a product of Northside Baseball. So reports confirm the Cubs agree to a deal with the veteran Justin Turner at the ripe age of 40. I think if you asked people around the league, how would you still sum up Justin Turner as a baseball player, many would say he's a professional hitter. And even at the age of 39 last year in 2023, if you look at the slash line, it backs up that notion and that idea that, hey, what is Justin Turner? He is a professional hitter who can still more than get the job done when he steps into the dish. What will he provide to the Cubs outside of hitting? Well, he's a depth piece. He can back up Matt Bush at first base. He can back up the rookie Matt Shaw at third base. I think he'll be an invaluable piece for Matt Shaw to sort of talk to, interact with about adjusting to life in the bigs as the rookie does that, and he can gain some incredible information perhaps from the 40-year-old Justin Turner, who's been in the bigs for quite some time now. So I think it's a good addition. I'm not against the signing of Justin Turner. It's not a knock on him. Here's where the problem lies for me. When the Turner move was announced, I was seeing way too much on Twitter, and maybe I'm just a little bitter about how the offseason has gone for the Cubs in large part. There's been some good moves. We'll get to those in a couple of minutes. But I saw way too much of, wow, what an incredible move. Great signing for the Cubs. They got Justin Turner. This is the same front office that was in on Alex Bregman before he went to Boston. And hey, if you want to argue, if your case is, look at what Boston paid Alex Bregman. They're overpaying for him. You can have that take. I'm perfectly fine with it. Take a victory lap. The price is what the price is. That apparently is the going rate because that's what Boston offered. That's what Bregman accepted. Keep in mind that the Detroit Tigers offered more for Bregman than what the Chicago Cubs did. Keep in mind there are various outlets, Buster Olney at ESPN, Ken Rosenthal as well at Fox, who have since reported that, the Cubs were technically in the running for Bregman, but they were not taken as a serious suitor for the veteran third baseman when you look at what they offered compared to what Boston offered, what Houston offered, and even what Detroit offered. This is the same front office that was in on Roki Sasaki, but ended up with Colin Ray and Matthew Boyd. Again, not a knock on Boyd, not a knock on Ray. Sasaki, the sensation, coming over, lands with the Dodgers. Some thought it was predictable. They already have Ohtani. They have Yamamoto. Perhaps there was some recruiting done to bring on Sasaki. Fine and dandy. But for a team that was in on the Phenom to end up with Colin Ray and Matthew Boyd is, it leaves a lot to be desired. And this was the same front office that was in on Tanner Scott and made a fair offer for Tanner Scott, only to be leapfrogged by the Dodgers and then end up with Ryan Pressly. And I like the Ryan Pressly trade. I think the Cubs have their closer for the next couple of seasons. I hope so. I hope last year was sort of an anomaly, especially in the first half of the year for Ryan Pressly, where he struggled, seemed to gain traction in the second half of the season. That had to be tough for him. He was adjusting to life as going from a closer for so many years in Houston to being the setup man after the Astros brought in Josh Hader. I like the Pressly trade. I don't like that the Cubs are in, supposedly, on so many of these big names, and they continually fall short. And in the Bregman case, it was strictly money related. In the Sasaki case, it was probably more so him just wanting to play with the Dodgers than the Cubs. In the Tanner Scott case, it was the Dodgers offering more than the Cubs. I don't expect the Cubs to compete financially with the likes of the Dodgers and what Cohen's doing with the Mets. But I am getting a little fed up with the Cubs continually, again, being the bridesmaid instead of the bride when it comes to free agency. In a division that it is absolutely up for grabs, the Cubs, at some point with one of those names, maybe a different name, could have ponied up more money, gotten a little bit uncomfortable, and made a move to push themselves over the top. To push themselves over the top to a point where people are like, yeah, the Cubs they're better than Milwaukee on paper entering this season. They're better than Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, St. Louis. The Kyle Tucker trade, you hope does that. And Kyle Tucker's awesome. But again, Kyle Tucker, I don't want to look too far ahead. He might only be with the Cubs for 1 year. Are the Cubs really going to go for an over $400 million contract, which is, if Tucker has a great year, a good year, maybe the ballpark of where those numbers start at? Are the Cubs going to pony up money then for Kyle Tucker, or is this a 1-year rental? That's my problem with what's going on with the Cubs. If they didn't make that move for Kyle Tucker, how do you view this offseason? Whiffing on Scott, whiffing on Sasaki, whiffing on Bregman. There were reports right before Bregman signed with Boston that it seemed like the Cubs were the favorite in the clubhouse, right? Like they were the leader to land Alex Bregman. And all of a sudden, Bregman signs with the Red Sox, and it's like, well, Detroit offered more, Houston offered more, Boston offered way more. Yeah, the Cubs were in the mix, but no, not the top choice. Maybe Bregman wanted to go to Chicago more than he wanted to go to Boston, Houston, or Detroit. Money didn't make sense. I'm fine with the Justin Turner signing. I think he'll be a good piece. I was really happy with the Ryan Presley trade. I'm fine with adding veteran depth pieces to the rotation, potentially the bullpen with Ray, but also to the rotation with Matthew Boyd. All of it's fine. But the Cubs continue to come up short with some of these big names in free agency. And I don't know when that changes.